Thank you, David.
Are we ready? Is it 10?
Yes, it is, Chair.
Okay,
And we do have quorum.
good. Thank you, everyone, for attending today's meeting. I would like to call this meeting to order. Before we begin, I would like to congratulate Hezekiah. God, this is ridiculous. So it's now,
It's a hard name.
yeah. Can you just get a short nickname or something? Who is now a full-time human services transportation planner since August.
Thank you.
Also, this is a reminder that a roll call will be conducted for introductions and all action items. DD will now call the roll call to call the meeting to order.
Thank you, Chair. I will now do the roll call. Do we have Carolyn Ballard on the line? Matt Dudley,
Here.
City of Glendale. Joan Freeman, City of Scottsdale.
Yeah.
Joan Freeman, City of Scottsdale. If you can say here. Go next to Autumn Groom, City of El Mirage. Autumn Groom. Ed Jones, City of Mesa. Nathan Williams, Count of Gilbert.
Yes, I'm here.
Wendy Miller, City of Phoenix.
I'm here.
Kim Perez, City of Whittier.
Here.
Kristen Taylor, City of Surprise.
I'm here.
And we have Chair Yabez, City of Tempe.
Here.
And Tom Young, Valley Metro.
Present.
Thank you. I thought I saw Joe Freeman on the line. Joan Freeman, City of Scottsdale, are you here?
Unmute.
Yeah, she's not being able to unmute. I'm not sure what is going on. I'll try to reach out to her.
Okay, so
Yeah, I see it.
we can, if we can. Joan Freeman, City of Scottsdale. Okay, we can confirm that. Okay, Chair Yabez, we do have quorum.
Thank you. I just lost my screen. Oh, gosh. What do I do now?
The next item on the agenda, Chair Yabez, is called to the audience.
Yeah. Sorry, I lost my screen, so I'm having a hard time here. Next, call to the audience. An opportunity is provided to the public to address the committee on items that are not on the agenda within the jurisdiction of MAG, or on items on the agenda but not for action. Please note, comments received for agenda items posted for action will be read at the time the item is heard. Have we received any comments?
Chair Yabez, we have not received any comments.
Okay. The next item is, oops. Are we okay?
Yes.
Okay. The next item is item 3, approval of EPDT ad hoc committee April 28 and 29, 2020 and May 6, 2020 meeting minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes? Are there any changes requested?
This is Kristen from Surprise. I move to approve.
Thank you.
This is Wendy Miller. I move to second.
It's been moved and seconded. Didi will do a roll call. Please respond by yay or nay.
Okay. Carolyn Beller, Town of Florence. Vice Chair Matt Dudley,
Yay.
Joan Freeman. I know she's having trouble with her mic, so I think she said
Yay.
yay.
Said yay.
Adam Grooms, Ed Jones, City of Mesa. Nathan Williams, Town of Gilbert.
Yay.
Wendy Miller, City of Phoenix.
Yay.
Kim Perez, City of Goodyear.
Yay.
Chair Yabez,
Yay.
and Tom Young, Valley Metro.
Yay.
Thank you.
The motion. So
The motions.
the motion passes. Sorry. Yeah. One second. Sorry. Oh, before we move on, due to a commitment of Vice Chair Mr. Dudley having to attend another meeting, I would like to move the agenda item 6 and 7 up next to the Vice Chair Dudley. The next incoming chair will be able to participate in the discussion. Matt, what time are you supposed to leave?
Robert, I have a hard stop at 10:40.
Okay. So item 6, having heard no objections, we can go to item 6, review of the fiscal year 2020 Federal Transit Administration, Section 5310, enhanced mobility of seniors and individuals with disability program for the Phoenix Mesa urbanized area. Every year we have the opportunity to debrief on the previous year's process. Staff will review the last application process and provide any comments or feedback for consideration for the next cycle. Didi?
Thank you, Chair Yabez and members of the committee. And we greatly appreciate your time for this process. Last year we were in a new environment. We did our whole application process virtually. So thank you for your time and your patience as we work through this whole process virtually. Next slide, please. Just to review this grant program is that this is a federal capital awards program, Section 5310, enhanced mobility of seniors and individuals with disabilities. Eligible applicants are private nonprofit organizations, public agency where no viable private nonprofit organizations are available, and tribal governments. The eligible population are agencies serving older adults age 65 and older, and agencies serving persons with disabilities. Funding requirements is that not less than 55% of the funding to go to traditional capital requests. And just review, traditional capitals are vehicles, mobility management, preventative maintenance, any hardware or software request. 45 are to other capital operating requests, less 10% for administration. In 2020, so the area that is assigned to the committee, for the EPP committee, is in the Phoenix Mesa urbanized area. You'll notice on the map, it is a blue shaded area. Every areas outside of the blue shaded area, the kind of sandy beige, ADOT, Arizona Department of Transportation, is both the designated recipient and the programming agency. For the Phoenix Mesa urbanized area in 2014, the city of Phoenix was approved to be the designated recipient for this area. And then the Maricopa Association of Government is the programming and coordination of the application process. In 2020, we had over $4.1 million in requests for the Phoenix Mesa urbanized area. We were apportioned for our area 3.4 million available. The application process for 2020. We did award our full apportionment through this process. And again, thank you for the committee on that. Some changes for this year, our vehicle contract went out early due to ensuring that we were on the procurement contract and we were able to get the vehicles out in a timely manner. The contract for the remaining awardees were out on October 1st. We recently requested a tip change due to additional funding. And in utilizing the priority listing, we were able to fund 4 additional agencies based on rank order and with that additional funding. And I am going to defer with Wendy to provide more information on that.
Thank you, Dee Dee. This is Wendy. Because we had already purchased our vehicles and done so early, we had about an additional $150,000 available. In addition to that, we were also had a small leftover contingency from the previous year, and we were able to fund a few preventive maintenance projects in last year's grant. So we had just over 200,000 left over. And so we were able to give Hacienda Healthcare, we were just able to move down the line with some of the unfunded projects. So Hacienda Healthcare got some preventative maintenance. Northwest Valley Connect is getting a vehicle. Laura Turner Homes is they're getting 3 vehicles of their 4. They declined the 4th one because they were receiving a reallocated vehicle from an agency that turned in a vehicle. So they got all 4 vehicles. It was just funded a little differently, and we were able to continue down. Sun Valley Lodge, a new agency, is actually going to get both of their vehicles, and that's where the funding for the capital subsided. Central Arizona Shelter Services is really the only and one step beyond were the last 2 remaining agencies that didn't receive any funding for this year. And one step beyond requested the other vehicle that was being reallocated and was awarded that. So really there was only one agency that didn't request some of the reallocated vehicles and didn't receive any funding this year. And I'm happy to answer any questions if I went through that quickly.
Thank you, Wendy, for that update. It is not unusual that we do revise funding for various reasons, including final procurement of the vehicles, as Wendy had mentioned, carryover or additional funding. Just commentary, that is a great, how we develop our priority listing really provides that flexibility that we can go back and award those additional funding. Every year we give the opportunity, the committee an opportunity to debrief on the last application process and to review comments. So MAC staff, meaning myself, reviewed the comments from the minutes from the last application process. Next slide. And there were 3 really major items for points of consideration, and I will go through them. The first consideration was discuss options for conducting the interview process virtually. We did have a lot of comments from the committee saying that doing the virtual interviews was a really good process. Coordination of how to do the interviews really worked out. a lot of the comments were that you were still in favor of continuing with the option of virtual interviews, whether we meet in person or, continue with virtual social distancing, not knowing, where we are, will be next year. So Max staff have looked into that option, and we can accommodate if you want to continue with the virtual option. And we have the ability, now that we have, some experience under our belt and how, and the apps that we're using, MAG is using Zoom for all committee meetings. Ezekias is able to, let people into the meeting room, at a coordinated time. So we have a lot more experience than we had in the past. So MAG staff can accommodate this if the committee would still like to have that as an option going into the next year. Are there any comments on that?
Chair Dee Dee, this is Wendy. I absolutely love the virtual option, especially since we're so spread out over the county. Even if COVID has subsided, we have agencies that have people like NAU. We always do a call-in with them. And so giving the agencies the option, if there is not a COVID issue, I think is a wonderful idea. If COVID is an issue, I say we continue with virtual.
Okay. Are there any other comments?
Chair, this is Matt. Yeah, I concur. I think the virtual interviews would work well. And I think it's only going to get better as we, Zoom kind of gets a little better. And then I don't think this COVID thing is going to go away by March. So I think having that virtual interview is probably the best bet at this point.
Thank you. And I see Nathan Williams does agree in continuing on with the virtual option, whether we attend in person or not. Tom Young and Kristen Taylor, I think there is a consensus from the committee to have this as an option, and MAG staff will continue to work on improving. Also Kim Perez, City of Goodyear. So I believe the consensus is to keep this virtual interview as an option, whether we meet in person or not. Thank you. The next item is review of the types of project requests to interview. That seems a little unclear, but what this means is the committee really, you voiced the option of interviewing all of the applicants. I know for this year, again, we were under a very different circumstance, and with the technology and all, but whether we meet in person or not, the consensus, the general comments from the committee was that everybody, that all applicants were to be interviewed. Are there any comments regarding this?
Chair Dee Dee, this is Wendy also. I agree that to treat everybody as similarly as possible. And now that we have experience with the virtual stuff a little bit better, I really think interviewing everybody is the way to go. That's my feeling. Due to, I know vehicles are just vehicles, and there's not a lot, in terms of the application. But hearing their story, hearing, if their application wasn't great, it gives them an opportunity to share that with the committee. I think it's very important.
Thank you. And in general, that was a lot of the comments, is they wanted to refer back on the utilization of the vehicles. And I see that John Freeman is also in agreement of interviewing all projects, whether we do it virtual or in person.
Yeah, Chair, this is Matt. I concur.
Okay. Also, Tom Young agrees to interview everyone. So I think the consensus is to, whether we do it virtual, is to continue to interview all applicants. Okay. Also, for I think a little larger discussion, the committee did want to continue with the discussion on awarding the operating projects and talk about and discuss the methodology of how we do that process. So we would like to revisit that. The committee had previously approved the parameters of awarding operating at 125, and there have been various different approaches to how the committee has the methodology that the committee used to award the operating after that, whether it be based on rank, we did proportional, we did increments of 125. So there have been a mixed method of how we did that. Before we begin the discussion, just a couple of things to keep in mind as we move forward is we have made some changes to our process. The committee did approve that MAG staff and the City of Phoenix staff have a 2-week internal review to ensure that all of the applicants moving forward meet federal and regional criteria. The committee also recommended and approved a 70% criteria and cutoff so that all of those applicants scoring above 70% would move forward for awarding. And that I'm very happy to say that we now have another full-time staff person to help with this process that will give us more one-on-one support as we move through this. And as I said, this last process was a little difficult. We had some technology issues, and there were some errors in the ranking percentages. One other thing that we didn't have that we had previously is that we didn't have the funding scenarios available at that time. We're working through that. We will get that together, and to make things a little bit clearer on the forefront before we go into deliberation. Also, there has been a trend to having more requests than we have available. So the last 2 years, we've really had to, the committee has really had to deliberate because we just don't have enough funding for all of the requests. Previously, it kind of all worked out. In the end, we had enough funding available to award practically all of the applicants. But I believe it was former chair Lucero who said, it's really important to work on options because it's just going to get tougher, and we're just going to have more requests. And I see that trend continuing. I see the trend continuing even through COVID. The requests may differ, but I think we'll have more requests for funding.
Jared, this is Matt. So Dee Dee, let me see if I can wrap my head around this. So pretty much we have 2 general pots of money. We'll say it on the left column is our 55% that we have to fund the base 55% of vehicles, mobility management, preventive maintenance, and software, hardware, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then once we get to that base 55%, then we take is it the 10% like admin cost out?
Yes.
10% admin cost out, and then we jump to the second column, which is traditionally the operations. And last year, we did the 125,000 kind of like straight down the line.
Correct.
Well, Chair or Vice Chair, this is Wendy. We actually did 250,000 this year.
We did 250 last,
right.
This year. Actually, no, that's a good lead into, I don't know, Wendy or maybe Mag, do we know what the average ask is on the operations side of the house?
Vice Chair, we do, we did pull a summary of the past 3 years of the request. I can give you information for all of the requests and for capital and then for operating. So the request, 70% of the requests came in from the past 3 years in the range of 3,000 to 125,000. That was the highest request overall. For capital, it was also in the range of 3,000 and 125. And for operating, at 63%, it was in the range of 3,000 and 125. For operating, the next highest request at 13% came at 480 to 600,000. So the average request did kind of fall under that 125 range.
Okay, so the average operations is about 125. Now, that $125,000 increment, that's something we've set up in the past, right? That is what we kind of agreed upon loosely in terms of how we move forward on this, right?
Correct. And that was approved, I believe, about 3 years ago.
Okay.
Has guidelines.
And nobody, you know, I in the past, I know we've got some, we're a little critical, actually, those about going with that peanut butter approach. But I think with that 70% level, that kind of takes out the peanut butter approach, right? So if you're 70 or below, or you're below 70 points, you're not going to get funded either way on the vehicle side or on the operations side, right?
Correct.
Okay. And then the process for the vehicles, mobility man, is we'll go, rankings do count here. We'll go from 1 to, say there's 20 people on, the left side of the column, and, number 15 and below is below 70. They're not in the conversation for funding, but those that are, 1 to 14 are. And then we go and then we fund the vehicles, award all vehicle requests until we get to that 55%, correct?
Correct.
And then I guess there's debate of what we do with, number, I don't know, we'll say it's number 14. 14's requesting 3 vehicles, and the first vehicle gets to that 55% threshold. Then we can decide whether or not, okay, do we just stop with that one vehicle, but we're kind of, rewarding all vehicles in that one. Do we then go ahead and give them vehicle 2 and vehicle 3, which I think is a good idea. So that might push us a little over that 55% threshold. And then we're done with the vehicle side of thing. Then you take 10% off, because you know what? I love making sure you guys get paid. So you be able to pay, even to Wendy on your side. So then that pretty much remains about that 35% of funding from the operations side of the house. And then to me, what I really do think is fair, I mean, with the $125,000 threshold, is we just kind of go straight down the line, in ranked order. 1 through, we'll say, I don't know, the first 10 out of the 20 made it above 70. So we'll go 1 through 10. Everybody gets their first pass of $125,000. Then we just kind of go back up and run through the 125,000 again. I mean, there's probably not going to be that many after that first pass of that $125,000. I mean, there's going to be a couple agencies, definitely. And we just kind of go through that in that rank order and just do those passes of 125,000. It's probably the easiest way to do things. It seems like that would probably be the most defensible way to do things if we're going to management committee to explain that process. And that to me seems kind of like the easiest way to do things. I know there's ways of talking about, well, agency 1 was ranked higher than agency 2. Do we go to a proportional basis? I don't know, that it almost seems kind of like it muddies the water a little bit, because it depends if there's, after the first or second pass, is there 1 agency, 2 agencies, 3 agencies left? Do we then turn around and say, okay, well, agency 1 in the ranked order gets 70% and agency 2 gets 30, or is it 60-40? It just seems like it just opens for a little more an argumentative approach versus a baseline $125,000 pass straight through the order until we run out of those funds, and boom.
Vice Chair Dudley, definitely. And I'd like to, again, go to Wendy Miller regarding the proportional aspect of awarding. We did, and like Wendy said, we did do the 250 because after the 125, there was no other request. So we just went to the 250. Wendy, if you could provide some additional information.
Sure, Dee Dee. Thank you, Chair Dee Dee. I did actually do a lot of work on looking at last year's funding and how it would have turned out should we do it differently. If the committee members remember from last year, we maybe didn't show it on the screen, but we had two scenarios that we looked up. One was just showing you what it would look like if we funded in score order. And the problem with that is that the higher, operational request funding it in score order, they soak up a lot of the funding, and we didn't meet our 55%. So by moving to what we had already agreed to, the 125 pass-throughs, that actually helped us meet our required amount. So we went through and funded it that way. When I looked at it and said, I think that the main thing came from this last year was that when all was said and done, there was 900 and some thousand remaining, or actually 600 and some thousand remaining after we did our we did our 250 pass through, and there was the amount remaining after the 950 or whatever, 900 some that was available. The problem came in is that when we did the pass-throughs, Valley Metro, who was ranked a little bit higher, got less of their ask. The percentage of what they requested, they got a lower percentage of their request than the city of Phoenix. And I know this is awkward because I'm city, but just going through it based on, the recommendations, city of Phoenix was the one to get a higher percentage. So one of the requests that came in, I remember from last year, because from the end of last year, I wanted to make sure that we addressed this. We looked at it various different ways. So when we went through and changed it to a proportional based upon the score, I did a proportional percentage to see what that would look like. It actually reduced the amount that was going to be awarded to Valley Metro based on proportional scores, because Valley Metro's score was 89. The city of Phoenix was 87. The percentage change was so less that Valley Metro would have only gotten 50% of the remainder of the funds, and city of Phoenix, or they got 50 point whatever, and city of Phoenix would get 49 point something. So if we moved to a proportional percentage, it would actually have tipped the scales even further in Phoenix's favor. Now, I also did a $250,000 pass-through because we had we had 600 and some thousand, and just to reduce the amount of times that I had to keep passing it through, I knew we'd hit the 250, so I did that. And I actually went back and looked at it to see, okay, if I had just done a 125 pass-through and did it that way, what would that change? Every time I changed it, it would give Phoenix more money, and it would have given the higher ranked, even though it's higher ranked, because the actual scores were so close, it would continually give the lower score project more funding. So the way we did it last year, the 250 pass-through, Valley Metro would have gotten, they got the most money that they could have gotten based upon our parameters by doing the 250. So we actually gave them more funding by doing the 250 than doing what the 125 would have been. So looking at the proportional percentages, I did it a whole bunches of different ways. I consulted with Ken Kessler, my CFO, because I wanted to make sure that, I was looking at this right. The way we're doing it with the 125 or 250 based upon what we have, it's actually giving a bit more of a nod to the higher ranking project than if we were to do it proportionally. I know I just spewed a lot of data and numbers at you, so please let's talk about it. I want to make sure, because I know Matt has only a few more minutes, so I want to make sure we have a chance to talk about it.
Yeah, this is Tom from Valley Metro. Just a couple observations at this point. You look at the capital end of it, and we go highest ranking gets full funding. As we go down, it adjusts based off of the ranking. We're looking at the operating grants completely separate at this point. I'm not going to say I agree or disagree with the way that we're doing it, but I think right up front, if we continue to do it proportionally, I'd offer two things. As one, we put a top end limit up front of how much somebody can apply for. So for instance, maybe put a $400,000 or $500,000 limit on an operating grant. The second piece of this, if the ranking isn't going to be 100% within there, that we do more of a qualifying, yes, you met it and you didn't meet it, and then do the either 125 or 250 accordingly. That way there's nobody can come back and say, well, you do capital grants one way, operating grants another way, and the highest ranking should have gotten the most or whatever. So just a couple different options we could look at.
Tom, this is Wendy. Thank you for that comment, Chair Didi. The only comment that I would have to that is we've talked many times about having a limit on the ask. And the issue with that is that we want to spend down this fund. So if we had limited it at 400,000, we would not have been able to give away all the funding. So by putting caps on there, if for 1 year we had much less requests come in on operating assistant, on capital, it's happened, and we have, been short on, being able to disperse all that funding. So I really believe in having, like, your agency asked for almost 800,000. If that was your need for the one project that was affected, I want you to be able to ask for that. And in times, let's say, some of the other larger agencies don't have that much of an ask, I want to be able to award you that. And I'm talking about this with the hat of being the, putting the numbers to paper grant, management end of it. We want to make sure we can give away all of our funding. So having that flexibility is super important to me and my staff.
Hey, Matt, I know you have 2 minutes.
I got 2 minutes, Robert.
Yeah.
All right, Wendy, I 100% see what you're saying with that 250 on the second threshold. What I'm trying to think, though, is like as we start moving, forward in the region, and we start getting more of the, right now it's pretty much, I think, just, Phoenix and Valley Metro kind of flip flop 1 or 2, maybe a couple of years, and I think every once in a while there's maybe another agency that starts requesting, more and more. I just like the defensible process of I know it's probably a little more work on your guys' part, and I do understand, but the 125,000, I think just seems like it's the most easily defensible way when we're going to regional council saying, okay, we're doing this 125,000 process we're going through, and then let the chips fall kind of where they may, depending, number one could be, 90% 1 year, maybe number two is, 85%, and maybe there's a number 3 that's at 78%. So I just, it seems to kind of go around a little more, and it'll give pretty much agency, what they're kind of asking for as we're going through that 125,000. It just will seem to give those 3 agencies a lot more. I know it's going to depend on where they come out of the grading. One could have 97, one could have 90, but 185. Oh, there's my stop. But to me, it just seems like that's the easiest defensible process that we have. And with that, I am so sorry. I have to go to this meeting. So I don't know if we want to push this item to discussion next time. It seems, and Tom, you have some good ideas too. So I know we've talked about that before, but I don't know. I'm trying to make this the easiest process we can have going forward. As you know, I want to be able to have those defensible steps going all the way up if regional council. That way, the intergovs don't get a call and go, hey, why didn't my agency get funded? And then we can have that process. But Wendy, I do see where that 250,000 second and third sweep could work. It just depends. What I see is just on the grading of what that agency comes in on that particular year versus a uniform process that we have on the operation side as we move forward over these years. It just seems a little more defensible. With that,
I don't have a problem at all with the 125. I was just doing it for ease, but it wasn't that much more work, and I could absolutely do it based on that. I was just using that as an example that it actually gave the other project more money to do it that way.
But definitely, my way is not the only way. I definitely want to hear from everybody else too. I mean, by far, I've probably been more wrong than right in my life, but we'll see. With that, I'm sorry, everybody, but I do have to go. All right. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
So do we need to come back and discuss this again?
Well, if this is Wendy, Chair, if we could hear from the other committee members to see what their thoughts are, that would be great.
This is Nate from Dover. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. I had a clarifying question because I remember things kind of different last time when I did this my first time through. Did anything that scored below a 70, did that get funded first? No. So I guess the only thing I want to clarify is that everybody that ranked above a 70 would get fully funded before it would move down to someone that ranked below 70. Is that correct?
Yes.
Nobody will get funding if they scored below 70. That's the cutoff point.
No funding at all. Okay.
Correct. And we did do that this past year. We just made it official for the next round to put it in the programming guidelines. But yeah, nobody that scored below 70 got any funding.
Chair, members of the committee, I also would like to make a comment. I went back and looked at best practices of other states utilizing 5310 funding. I've said this before, most of the states utilize all of 5310 funding for capital, Kansas City, Kansas uses all of their 5310 fund for capital. The difference is they have other revenue coming in through tax to award on the operating side. Oregon does use their 5310 funding to award for Right Choice, which is a nonprofit organization providing alternative transportation options. So we're in a pretty unique situation. And again, we are federally required to do the 55% to capital, which to Tom's point, we kind of do two separate processes only because that we are federally required for that 55% going to capital. And it comes out for operating is between, I would say, 35 to 30 of the remaining funds. Is there any more comments, Chair, members of the committee?
Any more comments from the committee? You don't hear any?
Chair, members of the committee, from the discussion that I heard on the table right now is to do the 125 increments for operating based on rank order.
Do we still have a quorum actually?
We still have a quorum.
Okay.
I know.
Hey,
I know. Thank you to our members.
So any more comments?
Chair, members of the committee. So at this point, from what I've heard regarding things for consideration, is that the committee would like to continue with the option of doing the virtual interviews for all 5310 applicants, to interview all 5310 applicants, and that for operating is to move forward with the 125 increments. If that is the consensus of the committee, we can move forward to the next agenda item to recommend for approval, or we can continue with this discussion at the next meeting. Chair.
Any motions to recommend the consensus for a consensus or from the committee?
Chair Dee Dee, can I suggest that we carry this over for further discussion so we all have time to maybe lay out and just think about it a little more?
We can. Chair.
Yes, we can.
Is that the thoughts of the other committee members? And chair, members of the committee, that also would provide Vice Chair Deli to be present. I see Nathan would like to continue this dialogue. And Kristen,
I'm looking at, I was looking at the comments and I was trying to figure out. Okay, everybody's saying continue. Okay.
Yeah, continue.
Chair Dee Dee, when's our next meeting?
The next, Chair, members of the committee, our next meeting is in January. But that would, whatever discussion or whatever consensus the committee has on the operating side, that allows us at least 2 weeks to revise any of our documentation. That includes the handbook and the application before we publish it. So we have some time.
Chair Dee Dee, is there an opportunity to have a discussion on this prior to then so that we're not down to the wire?
So are you suggesting a meeting in December? Wendy?
I'm saying before mid-January, having an additional meeting to solely discuss the issue, putting it out 2-3 weeks to give everybody a chance to consider it. And I'm absolutely happy to provide any documentation on, the calculations or, whatever anybody wants to do.
Yeah, Wendy, this is Kristen from Surprise. I think sharing would be helpful so that we can actually see, what kind of I don't know what your files look like, or if anybody else would want to see it, but you can follow along a little bit better when you see what's happening.
Do I have the ability on Zoom to share my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, you do.
I have
Chair.
I have it up. I have it up right now. If anybody is interested in what time is our meeting over?
11:30.
We have another
so we've got
waiting.
Do we want, since we're continuing anyways, do we want to go over it? Or I guess you could meet with Matt separately if you wanted to see it.
Well, if we're adding another meeting, then we should just do it we'll just focus on these two agenda items, 6 and 7.
I'm questioning if that's necessary, if we have more time at this meeting to continue to discuss it, if I could share my screen, and that would give everybody an opportunity to review what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Zacchaeus, could you share Wendy's screen? Thank you.
Wendy, you should be able to do it. Let me know if you can do it. Wendy, it should show the option to share. Let me know if you can't.
Thanks. I'm looking in here to see what.
It should be just a option in the bottom that says share screen.
When I hit more, it says participants invite, chat, record to the cloud.
Oh, it doesn't have the share screen. So let me see if I can.
I do on my
allow it.
end. This is Kristen from Surprise, so I don't know why Wendy wouldn't.
Well, I may not be
Yeah.
looking in the right place.
You have the Zoom app open, right? Or are you on the web browser?
I might be on the web browser. Let me look in the.
Wendy, could you forward that to Zacchaeus?
I think Wendy just left the meeting to try to join through the Zoom app.
Thank you. So Chair, members of the committee, so is a consensus is continue to keep the discussion going and reviewing Wendy's spreadsheet?
Well, I guess we just need to discuss whether we're going to continue it or not. I mean, are you wanting Matt to be involved in the decisions?
Yeah, that was the other one. Well, we know what Matt was angling for, or his direction. Do you guys think we can make a decision? That is the question. Why don't we see if somebody could share the screen? Why don't we see if we could come to a decision or not?
But
With,
chair
Wendy.
members of the chair members of the committee, I believe Wendy's trying to open it up so she can share her screen. Let's see if we're connecting. So based on the discussion and whether we can come to a consensus, we can motion to recommend it in the next agenda item when we look at
I'm so sorry.
the application process for 2021. Wendy?
I'm so sorry. I got kicked out of the meeting right as I was trying to share my screen. I opened it and I still don't see the ability to share my screen. So maybe we'll just wait and do this later, unless I can email it to somebody that can open it.
Wendy, if you could
You can email it to me. Yeah.
So chair members.
I just sent it. Sorry, Dee Dee, go ahead.
So chair members of the committee, and continue with the dialogue. So we are still continuing with this discussion and looking at other options of the methodology to do the operating. The three that I've heard so far is doing increments of the 125, looking at the proportional side of that. Actually, those were the only two that I heard. And then with Wendy providing some information on how it would look if we did the proportional side of awarding. And again,
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. I just wanted to say, thank you to the committee members. This is really a little difficult because we do have that 55% that we are required to award. I see that the spreadsheet is up.
Thank you. If you would please click on the first worksheet, the scenario 1, and scroll down. Okay, so this is the original one. So the amount that we had to give away was $3,206,379. What this is reflecting is a $250,000 pass going through. Basically, we funded in score order. If you'll scroll back up to the top, please. We funded in score order at the 125. If you notice off to the right, the grayed out amounts, the last column to the right here, those grayed amounts, that is indicating those operating assistants. And what happened was the percentages you see, Valley Metro got 63% of their request, and City of Phoenix got 88% of their request. So that was the complaint, was that, not the complaint, but the point was that Valley Metro, being a higher ranked project, got less of their ask. And then if you click on scenario, the last spreadsheet, this is the one that I did this morning. The ones that in red at the bottom, those people did not receive funding because they fell below the 55%. So we moved on to operating. The methodology we used was that we were going to fund up through the 55%. The one error that I did make that I wanted to point out is that we just funded pretty much up to that 55%. And what happened was we realized that there would be project savings because we just do estimated amounts. So we did fall below the 55%. And when the project savings became available, we continued to fund those well above our 55%. So I just wanted to point that out. Okay, going back up to the top where Valley Metro and Phoenix are. So if you look in the blue column, I did a proportional percentage based upon the score. So in order to make that work, you add the two scores together and then you divide the score by the total. That gave Valley Metro 0.505%, and it gave City of Phoenix 0.495% based upon the only 2 points difference. So Valley Metro got proportionately 50.5 and City of Phoenix got 49.5. So if you scroll down to the bottom, the original amount that was available in total for City of Phoenix and Valley Metro was $940,000. That's what we awarded. So I took $250,000 off of that to show what the proportional percentages would be. And it would have given, if we had done the proportional instead of just the 250 alone, it would have decreased Valley Metro from their $500,000 award down to $475,000, and City of Phoenix's $442,000 would have been increased to $465,000. If we did it based below that, I have the $125,000, and over to the right, it would have reduced Valley Metro down to $473,000, and City of Phoenix would have gotten $466,000. So the more you lessen it and don't do the pass through and you base it just on the percentages alone, it leans in favor of the lower scoring project. So the way that we have it right now with the 125 and then doing just passing through that way, Valley Metro actually got more funding. And I just wanted to show people that so they could see it. If there's a different mathematical calculation on how to do proportional scoring, I'm sure there's 1,200 ways to skin this cat. You know, we could, you know, look at this other ways. We could do a proportional score of all of the capital projects, you know, forget the pass through. We could do proportional scores, and those agencies that are getting 125,000 may not get as much if they scored lower. So if we just did funding in score order until we meet a little bit above the 55% to cover the project savings we're likely to have from those vehicles, like let's say we fund up to like 60% or whatever we think is going to cover, you know, those project savings so that we can ensure we met our 55%. And then the remaining we put towards operational funding. You could do a proportional score, but that is going to affect the smaller agencies. That is going to be more of the, you know, direct proportional, you know, scoring. But seeing as how Valley Metro and City of Phoenix typically score very closely and score relatively high in, you know, past processes, that's been the case, it's going to affect the smaller nonprofits. So we can do it based solely on score and do it proportional. I mean, any way that we slice this, it's going to affect someone at some level. And, you know, typically we've kind of aired on that City of Phoenix and Valley Metro, because we do get large amounts of funding, you know, always kind of put ourselves more in the background, you know, to make that decision, you know, make sure that the smaller agencies have kind of an equalizer to make sure that they're getting funding. So I just wanted to share that with you guys so you could see it. I could even do a proportional just on the operating assistance and see how that comes out. But I know that that's going to reduce what, you know, some of the other agencies get. And it's a little easier to do it that way on operating, because if you try to do proportional on vehicles, you're not going to get the exact amount you need for the vehicles. So it can only really be done on operating assistance. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions, or if anybody wants to talk about it further, or we can still move this to another discussion.
So, Chair, members of the committee, I just have a question. This is Tom. And I think you answered it, Wendy, but on all of the operating grants, there was more than just Valley Metro and the City of Phoenix, correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
We had NAU, we had Foothills Caring Corps. We've got smaller agencies in there that get operating assistance. It's primarily for volunteer driver programs. And so they're in the mix here. And that's kind of why we set that 125 to make sure that we do a pass through and those smaller agencies do get some level of funding. It was kind of a little bit of an equalizer that way. It was more, honestly, it was more to set up to protect them than it was to benefit Valley Metro or Phoenix or Glendale or anybody that asks and has gotten, operating assistance through this grant. So the cities actually can fare a little bit better in that regard, but without 5310, but we did that in place to kind of preserve those nonprofits. And that was kind of some of the feedback we had gotten from the transit committee when we did the peanut butter approach. And so we changed it from a peanut butter approach solely to a score-based approach and did it based on merit in score order, and it hurt the nonprofits, and they didn't like that either.
Okay, so kind of my question was going to be at this point, the smaller grant amounts, even though they scored substantially lower, they did get 100% of the funding. So in essence, aren't we still kind of doing the peanut butter approach at this point?
We kind of are in a modified way. If you give everybody a little bit of something, I guess you could classify that as peanut butter. But I think that, like I had said, we've done this so many years and we've done it so many ways, and always, no matter what we do, someone has some unintended consequences. And based upon the asks, it changes every year. And that's why we've kind of left ourselves open as a committee to make those decisions based upon that year and leaving us some flexibility. Our ultimate goal has always kind of been to make sure all of these agencies that are eligible, they may not have scored as high as everybody else, but we could do a totally proportional based on that. Just when you move to the operating, we could add up all their scores and divide it by the total and get a percentage and multiply the total available left over to those agencies and dole it out that way. And it would be solely based on score and score order, giving the highest proportion to the highest scoring project. That is a way that we could do that.
Thank you.
Chair, members of the committee, if I can provide some historical information regarding this. In past iterations of how we did this, in past processes, there was a time when it went on rank order, and there were some nonprofit agencies that were not awarded, that not received awarding through this process. And we did have letters of appeal regarding that. Regional Council was notified of those appeals of these nonprofits not receiving awards for a capital program. So, as Wendy stated, either way we cut it, we don't have enough funding available to award everybody. There has to be a methodology of how to do this. And this is a program for nonprofit agencies. Section 5310 was originally the capital program that was rescinded, and that those eligible projects were moved under the 5310 program, which is, as I noted, basically a capital awards program for public transportation that is insufficient, unavailable, or inappropriate for persons of older adults and persons with disability. So we also have to keep in mind the intent of the program. But thank you so much for all of your comments. I just would like to go back. Thank you, Wendy, for that information, but I would just like to, again, summarize the two options on the table right now is possibly a proportional methodology, and then the methodology of 125 incremental. Also, there was a comment of doing a 250 incremental. So is there any further discussion on this?
if you give me 2 minutes, I could probably come up with the total of what it would have looked like if we'd done a proportional disbursement based on score for just the operating assistance. Is anybody interested in seeing that?
Members of the committee, any response to Wendy?
I see Joan Truman said yes. Also Nathan would like to take a look. Tom Young. So I believe the consensus, if you can bring that up, that information up, Wendy, the committee would like to see that. Also, Chair Yabez and members of the committee, we are at 11:12. The committee, the meeting is set for 11:30. We have gone over to noon. I just wanted to make the committee aware of that.
We still have 3 items, right?
Yes. And Kristen Taylor just noted that she will have to leave in about 10 minutes or 11:30.
So should we meet again?
So Chair Yabez, and members of the committee, we can continue with this dialogue. If we do, we will have, we will still have quorum, but I think this is a really important conversation that we have all members participating. We can continue with this dialogue. So there's 2 options. We can continue with this option, and Joe Freeman has to leave at 11:30. So we can continue with this dialogue and look at the information, or we can move this, we can have a special meeting to continue with this and possibly get consensus of how to do the ward minute of operating.
So why don't we have another meeting and then you can have the updates from the 2 or the start with the first part of the agenda.
Chair, members of the committee, is that the consensus of the group to continue with the dialogue, and MAC staff can look and schedule another meeting for this dialogue, for this discussion? I see a head nodding, yes. I know previously Nathan and I know Joan has said yes, and Todd Young. So Chair, I think the consensus is to continue with this dialogue, and MAC staff will schedule another meeting for continue with the discussion. And I think Wendy had offered to bring further spreadsheets to show us.
Dee Dee, Dee Dee, this is Wendy. I just finished it. It's not going to work out that way because when you do a proportional based on score, it's going to give people more than they requested. So
Right.
the way that it worked out, it was 20% per project. So somebody that asked for $30,000 is going to get 20% of the available 35%. So my math is flawed. It's not going to work.
Okay.
So maybe we should discuss this another time, and we can look
Sure.
at additional possibilities on how to equitably divvy up the remaining money.
I think that's a consensus, Chair.
All right. So how many minutes do we have left? So we will move on from these. So shall we move on? We shall move on to, I think 7 is related, so maybe we should do them at the same time.
So Chair, okay, so the recommendation right now is to move 6 and 7 to a special meeting, continue with the dialogue. We can set up another meeting.
Okay. So the last item on the agenda then would be the presentation.
Yes, the sub-regional mobility managers.
Yeah, sub-regional mobility managers. So staff will find a time suitable to discuss this again. Is that, and you're gonna inform us when it could happen, but preferably not in January.
Yes, Chair and members of the committee, I think the consensus was to meet prior to the January meeting. So we will look at times, probably the beginning of December, to allow us whatever the consensus is to make edits and modifications to the application and the guidebook. We will provide 3 dates for committee members has a choice, and then we will move forward with the meeting.
Chair Dee Dee, I think we also skipped over agenda item 4 unless we're doing that now.
We are moving back to number 4.
4,
Okay.
5 will be the dashboard. So we can do that on the next one.
We can also move
Yeah.
7,
Okay.
6, 7, and 5 to the next
Yeah.
item.
5, 6, 7.
Correct.
Yes. Okay. So can we move to the
Agenda number 4.
agenda number 4? Are they all still here? The sub-regional managers?
Yes, Mark with Gompers had to log off, but the other mobility managers are still present.
So is that okay to take 3 out of the 4 then?
Yes, and then we can approach Mark to do his update at the next.
Yeah. All right. The sub-regional mobility managers are our community liaisons who support required coordination efforts by developing workshops and training for our Section 5310 sub-recipients. This is an opportunity to hear updates on the projects and future projects they're undertaking. So in which order are they going to present then?
Chair, members of the committee, I believe Justin McGregor is still on the line, and he will go.
Okay. Justin, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Well, go ahead then.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, so far, we've had one very successful driver safety training that was on September 3rd. We had a good attendance for that. We have one more scheduled for November 4th. We've beefed it up a little more, added some more material to it, hoping we have another great turnout for that training as well. And just looking for other ways to assist with future trainings. Any questions or comments for me?
Yes. Does anybody from the committee have a question or comment for Justin?
Sorry about that. They're testing our fire sprinkler system right now.
Oh, is it dripping yet?
No.
Yeah. Any questions? Can we move on to Robert then?
Sure. Hello, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to address you. I'm Robert Moss, and I work with Central Arizona Governments and also the Sun Corridor MPO as their mobility manager. And we do a lot of coordination with the MAG region. Dee Dee and I attend a lot of meetings together, and Hezekiah now as well, and we kind of attend each other's meetings. We're going through similar processes in our area. I cover the Gila and Pinal County region. We're looking at our scoring methodology for our particular applications. We receive our funding through ADOT, so we kind of have a double layer system. We provide our recommendations, and then ADOT has to mesh that with their statewide efforts. But we go through similar conversations as far as equitability and how are we going to provide funding to the most important places. So I can feel your pain as you go through this, and it's worth a discussion each year to make it work as much as you can. Like MAG, we do some occasional training. Our last training was in August. We did some past training for our drivers. It was an in-person training, and we didn't receive as many people as we hoped because of the pandemic situation. I think we still have some issues with people wanting to be in person. We also had a number of our agencies that had temporarily suspended their transportation program, so drivers weren't available. We're talking now about more training virtually as well as in person as people begin to open up a little bit more. We're seeing more activity in our area for businesses, which triggers more traffic from our clients who want to get from place to place. So we're hoping that our agencies will continue to ramp up their services. Our biggest area that we work with the MAG is around the Western Pinal County area, Santan Valley, Queen Creek, and those areas. We're really suffering from public transportation in those areas, but we're working with those communities and other agencies there to hopefully improve that. And so our coordination with MAG becomes real important, especially in those areas. So we appreciate the opportunity to hear what you're talking about and to be able to coordinate region to region, and we'll continue to do as much as we can to assist, and we appreciate your assistance with us. So that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any questions for Robert? Hearing none, can we go to Billy then, please? Billy, are you still there?
I sure am.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. It's good to be able to sit in on this meeting and find out what you all talk about and what you work on, and I find it very interesting. And as far as I'm executive director for Chandler Gilbert Arc, and have been our agency's been a 5310 recipients for many years, and I've been a sub-regional mobility manager for I think 6 or so years. At any rate, as you can well imagine, it's been an interesting year transportation wise for our agency. We've had all of our day services shut down since the 23rd of March, and we're really just watching the science in terms of when we can reopen our programs. And we have done some partial reopening on some of our employment programs, namely folks that are working out in the community at jobs on either work enclaves or in individual placements, and kind of catering our transportation according to that and according to safety regulations and different things like that. So that's been going through and doing my milestone progress report and looking at trips before the 23rd of March and looking at trips after the 23rd of March has been, obviously, as you can imagine, quite a difference, because we've had so many people that have not had a program or have had a virtual program which doesn't utilize transportation, or have a lot of our people that we support have are living in their group homes and receiving 24/7 support. And through the summer, you don't take as many trips because everywhere you go, you have to be inside, and for safety reasons. So that had an effect on our transportation. From that said, from a mobility management standpoint, a couple of the projects that I work on, one is doing vehicle sharing training, which we have developed a system and a process and do trainings on that, usually quarterly. We stopped doing that. We did one in the last, I believe 6 months, and we kind of shifted our focus to really working with other 5310 providers on things relating more specifically to the COVID-19 pandemic and how agencies are managing not only their transportation, but also their just their everyday operations. And we did one training on the 20th of August, and we have another one scheduled for the 28th of October. And the first one we did was really well received. We engaged all of our department heads in the training on our end. And there was just a lot of good information sharing. And I think, there was some really good takeaways for everybody involved, in us included. So we'll continue to do that. And as agencies and as programs start back up and transportation starts rolling again, we will go back to vehicle sharing training. And that, as I've mentioned in the past, it's an ongoing process. It's the documents change, the rules change, the methodology changes. And it's been a very effective program for us. Another project that we've started work on, and this really began with a conversation between Dee Dee and Wendy and myself about collaboration between agencies with vehicles. So the idea of perhaps creating a brokerage model between organizations where perhaps two agencies own one vehicle, or agencies share transportation between the clientele that they support. And that has really prompted a lot of really intensive study, and also a summary brief that was put together by Hezekiah. Thank you for that, by the way, Hezekiah. You did a nice job on that. And will really involve a lot more study. I met Amy Conrick at the CTAA Transportation Conference back in September, and she had a really keen interest in our vehicle sharing program. And I've talked to her several times since then, and also was interviewed by Kirby Wilhelm, who is a gentleman that works at CTAA, and they put a spotlight article out on their website and to all their subscribers about our program. And so it kind of got some national attention, which we were really happy about and felt really good about. And, and the second part being, it kind of created more of an alliance between at least our agency and our mobility management team and the people at CTAA. And so kind of circling back to the work that we've done on the brokership model, I was able to contact Amy also and get a lot of information, and some organizations that are actually doing a similar program like that, so that we can sort of study what they're doing and perhaps look at that as a model for, for continuing. So I guess in summary, looking at that from mobility management standpoint, we'll continue to work on vehicle sharing, and as programs get up and transportation running, we'll start offering that training again and continue to update it as need be. We'll continue the study on this whole brokerage model, and which is, like I said, beginning to take off on its own, and look at developing new partners. Also, as a mobility manager, I have also supported other agencies that are doing their proposals, which I usually do every year around the proposal time, and offer technical assistance and things like that, which I'm really happy to do. So That's kind of it, I think. Does anybody have any questions that I can answer?
Yeah, members of the committee, does anybody have any questions? No? Did Mark come back, or is Mark not here anymore, right?
No, he's not here anymore.
Okay. Thank you for your presentations and the work that you do.
Thank you.
Chair Yabis, and I know a couple of members have to leave at 11:30, so we can move on to agenda item number 8, request for future agenda items.
Yeah, please, let's do that.
So members of the committee, chair, so for the next agenda, we have to put on agenda item number 6 and 7 and 5. And we will set up another meeting prior to the January meeting in December. Are there any other items you would like to request for that agenda? I think we're good.
I think we're good. So those are the agenda that will be that we will look at in the next meeting.
Correct, Chair.
And then the last one, then it would be any comments from the committee? No more? So I guess the next one is motion to adjourn. Somebody makes a motion. Are we all gone?
Motion to adjourn. This is Wendy.
Thank you, Wendy. Any second?
This is Tom, second.
Those in favor? Say aye.
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 There you go. You didn't need to do a count, did you?
No, no, Chair.
Okay. Thank you very much. I know it's been a long meeting, and thank you for your service. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.